Welcome to Deep Dive by the Quiet Footnote. Today, we're plunging into a concept many of us are quietly searching for, maybe without even realizing it. We're talking about Ikigai, the Japanese secret to a long and happy life by Héctor García and Francesc Miralles. Our mission here in this deep dive is really to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights from our sources on this remarkable book. Think of it as a shortcut to being truly well informed about a really profound idea, one that could maybe reshape your daily existence. And it all kind of boils down to one central question the book explores. What's the reason you get out of bed in the morning?
It is such a fundamental question, isn't it? And Garcia and Morales, they approach this less like philosophers dictating some new doctrine and more like, well, observant travelers, explorers almost. They've done something quite insightful, I think. They've blended direct interviews with centenarians from Okinawa with rich Japanese philosophical traditions and even, yeah, a touch of Western self-help thinking. And what they brought back are these deceptively simple lessons, gleaned from a place, Okinawa, that's celebrated for longevity and this deep sense of purpose.
That idea of deceptively simple, that really hits home. It sounds like they're touching on something fundamental, this widespread feeling, maybe a hum of aimlessness or burnout, even though we seem to have more than ever, but isn't meaning a bit subjective. How did Garcia and Morales pinpoint a specific problem that Ikigai could genuinely solve, something beyond just, another self-help platitude?
That's exactly the challenge they took on, yeah. The core problem they observed is this lack of sustained meaning. It's not about just finding your passion once and then you're set. It's about integrating purpose so deeply into your life that it becomes, well, resilient. It withstands change. They highlight what they call the modern retirement trap. This pervasive idea of working flat out relentlessly, then just stopping abruptly, often leaving this huge void.
Yeah.
And they starkly contrast this with the Okinawan model, where purpose just doesn't seem to have a retirement age. It keeps going.
That's a huge difference in perspective.
It really is. And then there's the growing disconnection from community, from natural rhythms, things that technology and globalization, for all their benefits, can sometimes worsen. We gain speed, sure, but maybe we lose those daily anchors, social, physical. And finally, they challenge our rather narrow view of longevity. We tend to see it as purely a medical puzzle, right? But the authors argue that mental and social nourishment are just as crucial. It's not just about diet and exercise. Their core question really boils down to something like, okay, if you had to live to 100, how would you make sure your life stayed compelling, worth waking up for?
So Ikigai, then, isn't just a nice concept. It's presented as both a lens, a way to understand these modern issues, and, importantly, a practical remedy.
It really sounds like a quiet revolution in thinking. So how do they translate this big idea into something practical, actionable? What are some of the key principles and practices that really stand out when we look at the Okinawan approach through their eyes? Well, at its heart, Ikigai works like a compass. It's that famous intersection you've probably seen the diagram of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and yes, what you can be paid for. But the book really emphasizes this isn't some rigid career checklist. That's not the point. It's more of a guide to finding deeper meaning. As they put it so well, our Ikigai is hidden deep inside each of us, and finding it requires a patient search. It's about unearthing it, not inventing it from scratch.
A patient search, not a frantic sprint. That completely shifts the perspective, doesn't it? And that emphasis on, patient discovery, it seems to tie into their observations about small, consistent actions, too.
Absolutely. Totally connected. Take Hara Hachibu.
Yeah.
It's this Confucian-inspired practice of eating until you're about 80% full. But it's so much more than just a diet tip. It's a really profound metaphor for life itself. Enough is a feast. Contrast that with our modern tendency, our culture almost, of chasing maximums in pretty much every area.
Yeah, always more, more, more.
Exactly. And this principle, it extends to movement too. It's not necessarily about intense, punishing gym sessions. It's more about regular, low-intensity activity woven right into daily life. Things like gardening, walking, or even the communal radio taiso exercises they do over there.
Yeah.
It's about integration, not these isolated, intense bursts we often focus on.
It's fascinating how even something like mindful eating becomes a metaphor for a whole life philosophy, a life of enough. And it makes me think about how these small integrated practices, they surely extend beyond just the individual, right? It's not just about what you do, but who you do it with, because community seems like an equally foundational pillar in Okinawa.
Oh, you've absolutely hit on a critical point there. The moai concept is just fundamental. These are basically lifelong social circles. Friends who meet regularly for mutual support, emotional support, and traditionally even financial support sometimes. The book argues really powerfully that connection isn't a luxury, it's survival gear.
Wow. Survival gear, that's a powerful reframe.
Yeah. Isn't it? It completely reframes relationships. Not as optional add-ons, but as core life infrastructure. Something as vital as, I don't know, a roof over your head.
That really lands. And then there's the idea of flow, which I find so captivating. It's easy to think of flow as something maybe reserved for artists or surgeons or elite athletes. But what Ikigai seems to teach, subtly, isn't just what flow is, but how the whole Okinawan approach, with its focus on simple daily crafts, unhurried engagement, actually creates more chances for flow, turning mundane tasks into deeply satisfying experiences.
Precisely. Flow, yeah, is popularized by Miralles, is that state of total absorption. Time just melts away. It's that sweet spot where challenge perfectly balances skill. Too easy, you're bored. Too hard, you get anxious. Ikigai highlights this as direct gateway to meaning. And importantly, not just for grand creative projects, but for everyday things. Cooking, gardening, playing music. The reward is the total immersion itself, that feeling of complete presence.
And crucially, this sense of purpose, this engagement, it doesn't just switch off at age 65. The idea of purpose beyond retirement feels genuinely revolutionary, at least in our Western culture.
It truly is. The book reveals that the longest living, happiest people, they don't really retire from their purpose in the way we think about it. They keep gardening, crafting, teaching, contributing in some way, not out of obligation, but because they find immense joy, real satisfaction in that sustained engagement. It completely flips the Western dream of, rest is the ultimate reward after a life of hard work. It suggests that sustained contribution is actually the reward.
That's a paradigm shift right there. And finally, wrapping up these core pillars, there's that beautiful concept of resilience and wabi-sabi threading through it all.
Yes, wabi-sabi. The Japanese appreciation of beauty in imperfection and the acceptance of transience. It's such a powerful lens. The Okinawan elders seem to embody this. They view life's challenges not as rigid setbacks, things to fight against necessarily, but as opportunities to adapt, to learn. It fosters this incredible mental flexibility. It's perfectly captured in that powerful Japanese proverb, fall 7 times and stand up 8. It's all about getting back up, learning from the fall, not just trying to avoid falling altogether.
Okay, so when we look at all these elements together, the compass, the daily actions, community, flow, lasting purpose, resilience, it feels like Ikigai is quietly, maybe not so quietly, debunking a lot of common myths we hold. Beliefs about success, happiness, even longevity itself. What are some of those specific myths that the book really challenges effectively?
Oh, it absolutely does. It provides a really powerful counter-narrative to several prevailing ideas we often take for granted. Let's see. Myth 1, that your purpose has to be something grand, world-changing. Reality. Yeah. Ikigai gently reminds us that small, personal joys, tending a garden, making tea perfectly, engaging in a simple craft, these are just as valid, just as sustaining as sources of purpose. Meaning is often found in the micro, not just the macro.
Right, it doesn't have to be curing cancer to count.
Exactly. Then there's myth 2, that happiness comes after success. You achieve the goal, then you get to be happy. Reality. This is a big one Ikigai flips. It suggests happiness and meaning come from how you live today, from the daily choices, the engagements, not some distant payoff. You don't earn the right to enjoy life, you design it into your days, starting now.
That's so important. We delay joy so often.
We do. Okay. Myth 3, that more is always better.
Yeah.
Reality. The Harahachi-bu principle, stopping at 80% full, it applies way beyond just food. It's a metaphor for commitments, consumption, even ambition. The book implies that restraint, leaving space, actually deepens joy and prevents burnout. It runs counter to our culture's constant push for excess.
Leaving margin in our lives.
Precisely. And myth 4, that health is purely a physical game. Diet and exercise solve everything. Yeah. Reality. But we often hyper-focus on the physical, don't we? But Ikigai highlights that deep connection, that sense of ongoing purpose and mental resilience. They're equally vital, absolutely critical for true longevity and quality of life. As the book subtly implies, a longer life without community and joy, well, it's just a longer sentence, isn't it? Not necessarily a better existence.
That's a very stark but clear breakdown. It really makes you think. Which raises an important question for me. Why is this book, maybe written before our current hyper-digital, always-on age, why does it feel even more urgent right now? Its quiet wisdom feels like it's practically shouting in today's world.
Oh, the urgency is palpable, I agree. And it speaks directly to challenges we're only now really starting to grapple with fully. Think about the connected but alone paradox. Ikigai implicitly counters this rising epidemic of loneliness, which tech can sometimes exacerbate with the intentional small circle bonds of the moai. Isolation, the book reminds us through example, is now seen as detrimental to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's serious.
That's staggering.
It is. Then there's the busyness crisis. We glorify hustle, right? But burnout is almost the default state for so many. Ikigai pushes back, advocating for a sustainable rhythm, one that lasts for decades, not just fiscal quarters. And you mentioned the digital age well, with AI and constant work cycles making it easier than ever to overfill our lives. The book's message about prioritizing the important over the merely urgent and leaving space, that becomes a crucial lifeline.
Protecting that space seems key.
Absolutely. And when you think about health, yeah, modern medicine is amazing. It can keep us alive longer. But does it guarantee a life worth living? Not necessarily. Ikigai's focus on lifestyle, that light daily movement, mindful eating, a strong social web that feels like the missing link for actual quality of life, especially with chronic diseases on the rise.
And you touched on AI. What about its impact on work and purpose? That's a huge, very current concern, especially when that Ikigai diagram explicitly includes what you can be paid for. How does the book speak to that, even implicitly?
That's a brilliant point, and it's exactly where this timeless wisdom intersects with very contemporary anxieties. The rise of automation, especially sophisticated AI, it fundamentally challenges that what you can be paid for piece, as we've traditionally understood it. Jobs change, skills become obsolete faster. But the book, if you read it with that modern lens, subtly encourages us to anchor our sense of purpose less in rigid job titles which might disappear and more in those transferable human skills. Things like creativity, empathy, building relationships, contributing to community, qualities that AI, at least for now, really struggles to replicate. It's almost a quiet call to redefine our value beyond pure economic output and to really double down on the inherently human elements of purpose, finding meaning in ways that automation can't easily touch.
That reframes the challenge significantly, makes it less about specific jobs, more about core human capacities. Now, what's fascinating here is how did the authors themselves arrive at these insights? What was their journey? It clearly wasn't just, an academic exercise from an armchair.
Oh, not at all. It was genuinely a layered approach built over time. First, there was real first-hand immersion. Héctor García, one of the authors, he's Spanish, but actually moved to Japan years before they wrote the book, and he lived it. And both authors made multiple trips to Okinawa, specifically to Ogimi, often called the Village of Longevity. They weren't just reading studies, they were literally drinking tea with centenarians, sitting in their gardens, observing how meaning and routine were woven into the fabric of daily life.
Getting that direct experience.
Exactly. And that was backed up by direct interviews with Okinawan elders, people aged, 90 to 110 plus. Their stories about staying active, smiling, keeping friendships strong, never really retiring in our sense.
Yeah.
Those stories anchor the book in lived reality. Then, yes, they synthesize these observations with established research. Things like the Blue Zone studies, which I'm sure you know, and psychological frameworks like Viktor Frankl's logotherapy as search for meaning and Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow. And importantly, both authors brought their own personal search for meaning to the project. They'd questioned their own life directions before embarking on this. So it was really this confluence of deep personal engagement, boots-on-the-ground reporting, and solid academic research.
That makes sense. It gives the book its grounded feel. Now, beyond the clear lessons, the practical takeaways, there's often an unheard message in books like this, isn't there? A subtle truth that pulses beneath the surface. For Ikigai, what do you think that deeper, perhaps less obvious takeaway really is?
That's a great question. I think the unheard message of Ikigai is profoundly simple, yet quietly revolutionary in our modern context. It's something like this. You don't have to change the world to live a meaningful life, but you do have to change how you move through your days. It's not some grand self-help anthem screaming about chasing your one true calling or waiting for a massive life breakthrough. No. Instead, it's this gentle, persistent nudge. It says meaning isn't hiding out there in some distant future achievement. It's right here. In the way you make your tea, how you greet your neighbor, how you tend to your craft, whatever that is. Joy, it tells us, is built in teaspoons, not buckets. And those teaspoons, those consistent, small, mindful acts, they matter more than the rare, big feasts. Purpose isn't the reward for achievement. It's the fertile soil from which everything else grows. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Soil, not reward.
Right. The life you truly long for isn't out there somewhere. It's embedded in the way you walk, not just where you think you're going. And maybe the most subversive part of that hidden message is this. Your worth isn't tied to scale or speed or spectacle. Not at all. It's tied to aliveness. And aliveness, that feeling, can be found in the smallest acts as long as they're done with care and presence.
That's a truly beautiful and powerful distillation of the book's quiet essence. Okay, let's try and distill this even further. Let's nail down 5 sharp takeaways, things we hope might become almost a daily reflex for you listening.
Okay, 5 key takeaways. Here's my take on what the authors really want us to internalize. First, purpose is daily, not distant. Ikigai isn't some grand discovery you stumble upon once. It's something you build, you cultivate through consistent, meaningful actions you choose every single day. It's a practice, fundamentally not a destination.
Practice, not destination. Got it.
Second, stay active. Never retire from joy. A long, fulfilling life comes from continuing to engage. In work, hobbies, contributions that matter to you. Regardless of your age, find ways to keep your hands and mind purposefully busy.
Keep that engagement going.
Third, community is medicine. Those strong reciprocal relationships, like the Okinawan moai, they are as critical for longevity as your diet or exercise routine. The book strongly implies that isolation is like a slow poison, while connection is essential life infrastructure.
Don't underestimate connection.
Fourth, enough is better than more. Remember, hara hachibu, stopping before you're full. That applies way beyond food, to schedules, to ambition, to stuff. Balance and restraint actually sustain joy far better than constant excess.
The power of enough.
And fifth, flow is the compass. Seek out and actively protect those activities that make you lose track of time, where a challenge perfectly meets your skill level, these flow states. They're true nourishment for the spirit, found right there in the intentionality of daily life.
Find and protect your flow. Okay, those are 5 really solid principles. So, for you listening right now, what does all this mean for your life? How might this deep dive affirm or maybe challenge your own beliefs and your daily practices?
It's interesting because, as I mentioned, for many people, Ikigai might feel less like a radical, disruptive challenge and more like a profound affirmation.
Hmm.
But with a few pointed nudges, it probably affirms the idea that purpose can be found in daily craft, something you might already weave into your life without calling it Ikigai. It likely validates the concept of never really retiring from joy, from continuing to create, learn, contribute. And it almost certainly affirms the power of flow, that feeling when you're lost in an activity, as fuel for your energy and creativity.
So lots of potential affirmation there.
Definitely. However, where it might challenge you, where it might push a little, is maybe in a couple of key areas. The book encourages identifying and nurturing maybe a single central thread that ties your endeavors together, not to limit you, but to keep your energy focused, cohesive. That can be a challenge. It also really emphasizes community and a deliberate daily practice, not just something nice to have. While you might really enjoy your solitude, the book is a strong reminder that deep, regular connections building your small, steady moai might be longevity's secret ingredient. And finally, really applying hara hachibu beyond just food, applying it to your commitments, your information intake, actively leaving space, not overfilling your life, even with good things. That requires conscious effort. So yeah, Ikigai probably affirms that you're already living in alignment with many of its core truths, but it also dares you, I think, to gather those threads into one strong rope, and maybe to let a few more hands hold that rope with you.
That's a lovely way to put it. Gather your threads and let others help hold the rope. So after this deep dive into Ikigai, what's next? For you, the listener, how can you start to maybe integrate some of this wisdom into your own life, starting tomorrow?
Well, I'd really encourage starting small. Don't try to overhaul everything at once. Maybe think about designing your day to consciously ritualize your flow state around one central project or passion. Give it protected time, even if it's just 30 minutes. Also, maybe look for opportunities to actively strengthen your moai, your small supportive community. Make those connections more deliberate, more consistent. Reach out and practice harahachibu, not just with your plate at dinner tonight, but maybe with your commitments for next week or the amount of news you consume. Just try leaving a little space, a little emptiness. See what emerges.
That's powerful, practical advice. Start small, pretend flow, nurture community, leave space. Ultimately, it feels like Ikigai isn't about finding some grandiose destination or chasing endless new horizons after all. It's much more about tending a garden of meaning, slowly, daily, patiently for a whole lifetime. And maybe here's a final thought to mull over. In a world that often rewards efficiency over meaning, that pushes for more, faster, shinier, Ikigai quietly dares us to reject that economy and instead to build a life that might look smaller from the outside, perhaps slower, but feels infinitely richer on the inside. We really hope this deep dive has given you plenty to think about and maybe some inspiration to explore in your own life.